Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei, and I'm so excited to paint with you again today. Today we are doing another page in our watercolor journal books in this series. I'm going to be continuing with some line and wash or ink and watercolor, where I'm going to be using ink pens to draw out my outline, and they're very much a part of the piece, unlike when we trace something out or sketch something out in pencil and erase the lines and really don't want them to be part of the piece. This is very much part of the piece. So we're going to do some illustrative flowers. And I'm very excited for this one. So what I have with me is my 6x9 Bao sketchbook, watercolor journal book, 140-pound cold pressed paper, 100% cotton. I have a couple of Micron pens. That's the brand name of these, but they're archival ink pens or Illustrator pens. I have a couple Artist Loft. They're basically the same thing. They're these fine tip pens. I do have one brush pen here, and we'll use those. A couple of brushes, a couple of rounds. I don't need that rigger brush, I don't think. I have a size 10, a size 8, and a size 4. 2 Velvet Touch, and this one's a silver black velvet brush. My enameled palette here. This is a butcher tray, an enameled metal butcher tray. And then my Core mini palette, QOR by Golden. This is just my preferred palette right now for these videos, but Core brand is what I paint with most often. But whatever brand you have is probably wonderful and will work great for this tutorial. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with, I think this is a size 3. Nope, this is a size 8. Let me start with a size 3. Micron pen. This is a pretty fine line. Because my paper has a little bit of a rough texture, you're going to see that this pen does kind of skip around a little bit, but that's part of the charm of it. So we're going to start with a wide petaled flower with a fun, interesting center. And I'm just going to do a couple. Some of these are going to be, I think I'll do 2 or 3 flowers. I'm going to start with the center of it here. And just using my pen to kind of go along around the outsides of that. And then I'm going to give it, let's see, like one big petal sticking up this way. And let's have some kind of coming out around, one coming up in front of it, maybe one out to the side, falling off that way. Another big petal kind of falling away. And I'm going to add lots of texture and lines to this that are very much going to be a part of this piece. So these are going to stay in. So around the center stamen, so this petal here that's coming around the outside, this one is scooping up like in front of it, like this way. Okay, so we want to make sure all of my texture lines work with that direction. So they're all kind of coming down and inside here. And give this petal kind of an outside here. And then this is the inside. And we'll try to communicate that with a little color. And then also I'm going to put in these circular pieces in the center here that are all going to kind of connect back. So these ones at the top are further away. We're going to connect them back with our pen. And these are closer to the center because there's a little foreshortening. So they go around. And then this guy needs And this one I have, you can see I put some lines this way, and that was a mistake. They should all have kind of scooped in this way. That's okay. So it's a little confusing or distracting right there. But it's okay. I'm going to take, let's see. This is my brush pen. I might regret this, but I'm going to put even some darker, heavier lines. Go around the center here. Let's do a few up here. And you can stick with whatever pen you have if you only have one. Okay. I am now going to switch over to a different flower. I'm going to put in just a few more lines on this one. I'm going to switch over to a different type of flower. Let's do like kind of like a daisy. All right, I'm going to make a center here, but then I'm going to fill it in with all these little round overlapping or really close together. Some of them might overlap a little bit. Make the edge so it's not perfectly round. Then I can also take, oh, not that one, my brush pen that has just a little much heavier line, but I can use that to kind of ink in around the edge. And now I'm going to make these kind of squared off little jagged petals. They're going to be kind of thin like that. And I'm going to do a couple around each side. I want it to get to doing a couple on each side like this can help you gauge like the circumference. You could certainly put a pencil line around, but that way one side isn't super, if you're trying to draw it straight on, isn't much bigger than the other. We're going to draw some of them a little shorter and overlapping. Take your time with this, unlike me. Draw. And it's okay to leave little gaps. I'm going to leave a little gap up there. And these are going to be white flowers, which when you're doing ink and wash are super easy because you have the outline that's really going to substantiate your shape. And you're just going to draw in or paint in some very subtle shadows. All right, that looks good actually. Maybe we'll just do two flowers. I drew them both kind of big, so let's do some stems. So we come from the middle. Let's see, maybe a little bit of it there. There we go. Can add on a leaf. number 2. Let's draw one in here. There we go. Okay, let's jump over to some painting now. About 10 minutes of drawing in, perfect. Actually, is this my... I'm going to take my brush pen. I'm just going to add, again, a little bit heavier. I'm going to use this to create some shadow. And you can do this part later too, if you're just not quite sure if you want to commit to this heavier line here. I'm hoping this ink really holds up. It should. You do want to make sure it dries completely. Just putting in. There we go. Okay. Do this. You can always put in hash lines with your other pen too, your lighter pen, and just build up the darker color contrast. All right. So I'm going to take my size 10 Velvet Touch brush. I'm going to pull out some Quinacridone Magenta. And I'm also going to pull out some of this orange that I have here. I'm going to mix these together to create this more red color. Because I don't have like an alizarin crimson or anything. And I'm going to start, I believe I'm going to go darker in the middle. So I put my darker color in the middle, and then I'm really just kind of doing a wash of water around the outside there. I'm going to put my darkest color definitely down here where my dark pen lines are. Wash up this way. I'm not going to worry about going out of the lines a little bit. I actually like that look. And also leaving some white highlights. This whole bottom here, I'm going to make darker. You can see my brush strokes are even following the lines that I drew in there. I'm going to go around my middle. Pick up a little more orange. These are a little pink for me on this side. Let that dry and see how we feel. I'm just dropping in a little orange to let it mix in to see what happens. Create some real interesting, rich vibrancy with the magenta. And you kind of don't know what color it is. You're like, is it orange? Is it pink? All of the above. All right. So now in the center, I kind of love that center white. It's fun. I'm going to do yellow. And I'm going to put just a yellow wash like right in the center here. And if it were to bleed into the rest, it would be fine because yellow, we're using the same color family. We have all warm colors, magenta, orange, yellow. It's not going to really mess anything up too severely. I love this rich area down here. You can even take some of this magenta and orange and add a little Payne's gray to it. To really darken it, create a shadow. Add a little purple in there. All right, so let's let that dry. That is super bright and vibrant. I love it. And we can always go back. I'm definitely going to add some darker. So I had some yellow. I took some of that orange. I just picked up some of this brown oxide on my palette. Just going to go towards the bottom. Of our center yellow area, creating a shadow. Just dab that in, but I want that yellow at the top to stay the highlight. All right, so let's get rid of this brush. I'm going to clean it off nice. Let that dry. I'm going to pick up my smaller brush, my size 4. I'm going to pick up some Payne's gray. We'll mix it in this little spot right here. Rinse my brush off really good. So now I just have water. And I'm just going to pull a little bit of that Payne's gray out till I have this really light touch gray color. Some of this is bleeding in, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is basically create shadow on these petals. We'll go back into the center in a minute. The shadow is going to be concentrated around the center, the darkest, and kind of around the edges. There will be some like lines in the middle of a petal. Try not to overthink it, but leave a significant amount of white in many of the petals. Now, if you want to create like shadow, like this, let's say this bottom half here is kind of tucked a little bit behind this, so it's all in shadow. You can pretty much make this mostly light gray down here, and then we'll put on our details in an even darker gray, but leave the top with lots of white showing through. And we'll let it be darkest towards the center here. All right, let's put in that center. We're also going to do a yellow center that we're going to orange up quite a bit. So I'm going to do a wash of yellow. Take some of this orange here. Be very careful. I'm going to add in a few spots. This, I put on a very light wash of yellow that almost dried like instantaneously, pretty quickly. There we go. All right, let's get some green in here to support these lovely ladies, these beautiful flowers. I'm going to pick up some sap green with a little phthalo blue. Bring that through that stem. a little bit right there. Just going to paint in my leaves. And I'm going to pick up some of this green and I'm going to add a little Payne's gray to it. Go even a little darker in some spots. Underside here. Take my smaller brush. Blend this out a little bit. There we go. This heavy line back here got a little too heavy, I think, for me, but c'est la vie. You know, we can add another leaf even behind it. And you can just leave them just like that, or you can even go back in with pen if you want to kind of pull them into the rest of the design. But sometimes it's nice to have a balance of some elements without pen and some with. That can be fun too. There we go. All right, we're going to let that dry. You can go back and decide if you want to add more elements of pen onto it, but you do have to let it dry completely before you start adding pen on, or it will not work out so well in your favor. So I'm going to let that dry and add a little bit more pen on. All right, so if you want to add pen on afterwards, you can. And sometimes you can actually do your whole painting this way. You can draw on or paint on like your foundation first and then go add the detail with the ink. I do wish I didn't add that heavy line down there. I'm trying to bring in some more of these fine lines to balance it out a little bit, but it definitely looks a little too heavy. It's distracting to the rest of the piece. It's the first thing I see in this whole lovely piece. So you do have to be careful with stuff like that. So I'm just going to go back into here and add a little more shadow on the bottom side of the center. I'm going to add a little more Payne's gray to my red color and add that right here to this super shady area to give it like some real contrast. I'm going to add a little bit more in the centers here, like where this petal overlaps this one. Cast a little shadow there so it's a little darker on that edge, and same on this side. This one petal is furthest in front. kind of like the white bits and elements. So I'm not going to touch them too much. I'm going to get kind of dark, like right towards the center. Just to kind of balance out this super dark shadow down there. And same thing, let's see, with our daisy. I can go back through now. I could do it in paint, or I can add like some heavier lines. So they don't get as lost over top here on this darker section. And then lighter lines up here. So very little pressure. There we go. I think we're done. All right, thank you so much for painting with me once again in another watercolor journal page. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm Shayna Cersei. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Check out the description for links to supplies and materials that I use in this video, as well as regularly. You'll find links to the core mini palette, as well as to other sets of tube paints that I use in my main palette. Links to the Bohong sketchbook, as well as several other sketchbooks, the Tumorta and the Hanamude ones, as well as brushes, pens, so on and so forth. So lots of different links in there. Thanks so much for painting with me, y'all. And thank you to my super thanks subscribers or contributors. You guys are the best. I can't convey my thanks enough. So thank you. All right, y'all, take care and happy painting.